Welcome to part 6 of Competency 1. In this video, we will work with percents and ordering values. Number 1, which of the following is equivalent to 36%? Now, this may seem like a very simplistic question, but what we need to do is tackle it using our calculator. We have a feature on our calculator. So push 36. Now, I need you to look at the open parentheses. Above that, it has a percent symbol. Well, we use that symbol, like we're going to do right now, to say, hey, this 36, we want it to be a percent. So push second and the open parentheses. So now we have 36%. It's typed in, but it's not entered yet. So push enter. Now it's in our calculator. However, I don't see the option for number 1. What do we need to do? Push the toggle button that gives us that back and forth from fraction to decimal above the enter. So push that, and lo and behold, there's our answer. It turns it into the fraction we need. Automatically simplified the way we need it to be. So that would be option B. See, you might have been compelled to put it in a decimal form like C, but as you see from our calculator, that just isn't plausible. So that's not reasonable. And then A can't work, and obviously not D. Okay, now let's look at number 2. Which fraction represents 33 and 1/3%? Well, this may seem also like a simple question, but let's use the features on our calculator. Okay, so first we have a mixed number. So let's push second and the mixed number, which is above. See that above our fraction button? Okay, so now we put in our 33, arrow over 1, arrow down our 3, arrow all the way over. Now we need to say this number is a percent by using our second percentage. So now we have typed it in exactly how our question has it, but it's really not entered into the calculator. So let's do that. Okay, 33 repeating, or 3 repeating, excuse me, 3 repeating. Not an option here. Okay, this particular question is a time for me to remind you of a property of fractions, repeating fractions. Any repeating fraction, such as 3, is 3 over 9. Okay? But how do I prove that to you? Which would be C, by the way. But let's use our calculator. And above the enter, let's use that toggle button. Well, that says 1/3. Interesting. Well, I just said there is a property. You take your number that's repeated, that would be 3, and you put it over 9. So let's create a fraction. Okay? And that would be 3 over 9. Well, if we reduce that, let's push enter. Isn't that 1/3? Now let's use our toggle button. And we see that it is 3 repeating. So C is the value we need. Okay. And just a little FYI, another way to write that is also 0.3. Okay. That may be something you might see on a test. Okay. Let's look at number 3. Let's move this up. Okay. Which of the following is not equivalent to 125%? Again, we enter that into the calculator. We do second percent. Now, it's typed in the calculator, but it isn't entered. So you have to actually push enter. So we look over and see if we have an option. And yes, it looks like we have D. Okay, now we could also use the toggle and 5 over 4. Oh, it says not. So I'm doing the wrong thing. I'm proceeding, but not marking them out. I was circling it. So this one, because it says not, and this one is. Okay, so that gave me the decimal. That gives me the fraction. Well, hang on a second. What about 125 over 100? That one looks like it is equivalent. Well, let's see if we can find some other ways. Let's push enter. Okay, let's push our toggle. That's our decimal. Fraction decimal. I don't think there's any other way to get it to move around as far as using the calculator. But let's go ahead and put 125. Oh, yeah, let me clear that out. Let's actually use the fraction and enter it. 125 over the 100. Press enter. Yeah, and see how it gives us the 5 over 4. So those are not it. So obviously 0.125 is not equivalent, and it isn't, because I know that this equals 1/8, which is obviously not over 100%. So C would be the option. And you could put that in. Let's just iterate. There's a way to just play with things. If you have something like this and you're not sure, I'm going to go ahead and clear this out. Let's just put it in and then push buttons on our calculator and kind of play with it and see what happens. So I have it typed in. I have to push enter to actually physically enter it. Now it's entered. Now let's use our toggle. It's 1/8. And we can push enter again, push our toggle. Let's see, there's ways to do this. We need to check it as a percent. How do you do that? Well, that's the button next to the right, which is the close parenthesis. Look above it. See where it has the arrow and the percent? That means change me to a percent. So push second and that closing. Now, see what it's done? It's put the change arrow, meaning change, 2% beside it. Okay, now let's push enter. That's actually the percentage, 12.5%, which is not 125%. Okay, all right, let's look at number 4. What number is 85% of 220? Okay, well, let's write this algebraically and tackle it algebraically. Okay, so let's say x is, which is equal, 85%. Do not change it to decimal. This calculator gives us a convenience of not messing with that decimal, which means you don't make as many mistakes on a test. The of is our multiply, and then 2 to 0. Literally type that in the calculator. Okay, so I'm going to clear out my calculator. I'm also going to clear out my button options. Okay, so let's type that in. 85 second percent times 220. Push enter, and that's the value we need. Really convenient. And again, one of my other favorite things that this particular calculator will do. Okay. All right. So let's go to number 5. All right. Let's tackle this algebraically also. Yeah, because I'm seeing that is. Okay. So let's write it down. 45.5 equals. Well, this says what percent? So let's do percent, and of, that would be times 50. Now, if we're going to deal with this algebraically, and I said that this is a variable, let's say it equals x, okay? So what would we do? Okay, so that is, we treat the percent like a variable. We would divide both sides by 50. Okay, now let me show you how to enter this in the calculator. All right. So yes, all right. Before I do that, actually, 50 over 50, that's going to equal 1. So obviously we don't worry about that 1, right? If I can make it actually look like a decent 1. Okay, let's say it does. Okay, so let's say percent, and I have 45.5, arrow down, and I have 50, and I arrow over. Now, we want it to be a percent, but don't worry about that yet. We push enter, okay, but it's still not a percent. What we do is we use that change 2% button, okay? So the one above the closed parentheses. So say second parentheses, and see how it says, I'm changing your decimal to a percent. Now push enter. And it did, 91%. Okay. So probably the best way to see this is that we are going to enter things precisely the way we see it in the question, or if we can't, we're going to deal with it algebraically. Number 6, 28 is 1.6% of what number? Okay, so how we need to think of this is 28 equals 1.6% of, which means multiplied, to some number. Now, just dealing with this quickly, algebraically, we would divide both sides by the 1.6%. Okay. All right. So that means that we would have a 1 here. So then we have something to enter in the calculator to get the value that we need. Okay, so yes, we are going to enter it precisely the way we have it written here. So that would be 28, arrow down, 1.6. Now we need that percent symbol. So second percent, that's parentheses open, okay? And push enter. And that's the correct value. That would be option B. Okay. Now, if that just seemed too simple for you, go ahead and work it out by hand, but it does. Another thing, I mean, I've got to say, it's another good feature of this calculator. I really appreciate, even though it is a simpler calculator than a lot of the other calculators, and it seems like, what can I do with this scientific calculator? Actually, you can do a lot. Okay. That being said, let's look at the next one. Number 7, order the following numbers from least to greatest. Let's get the pink there. Okay, so we need to go with the smallest number. So actually, we need to start with the negative values first. Well, let me get our highlighter out so we can highlight them and see them. Okay, so we know we need those first. That gives us some things we could mark out. So obviously pi, which is about 3.14, that would not be the least number. So mark out A. And then let's look at D. D is starting with a fraction and then pi. In fact, none of the, it looks like the negatives are at the end. So D can't be it. It might be greatest to least, but it's definitely not least to greatest. So now let's look at B and C. Well, they have the negative values first. However, we don't know which one until we put a negative square root of 80 in the calculator. We don't know which one is the smallest. So let's do that. Let's say negative second and the square. That gives us our square root. Put 80 in there and push enter. Oh, well, that doesn't give us a decimal comparison. It looks like it's smaller. So what do? You push that toggle. And there it is. Well, that's -8. And this other one is -9. Well, of course, decimal after that. So that means that the -9.345 is actually smaller because it's a larger negative. So that will be option B. Okay, so C wouldn't be right. Well, let's look at some other things that are correct about B. Okay, well, if we go to the end of it, we see that pi is bigger than 2.5 repeating. Well, that verifies. I like that. And I like these two negatives, the order they're in. And let's do fraction 20 over 3 and push enter. But it's entered in the calculator, but we have to push our toggle, remember? Well, that's 6 and 6 repeating. So that's a whole number of 6, which is larger than pi. So I agree with that. Now let's look here next. Rather in the middle. Well, obviously 11% is 0.11. And if you're not sure about those, like I said, you can put them in the calculator using the actual percentage symbol. So 11 second percent, enter it into the calculator and it automatically pops out that decimal. So is it the smallest decimal? Well, 0.11 is definitely smaller than zero point 0.6 repeating. So I agree with that. But is this unusual looking cube root fraction going to be between those two? Well, let's see if it is. Gives us an option to see how to use our cube root, our root symbol, okay, which is above the caret up button. Right? So how do we do that? You can't just push the button. Let me show you what happens. And I'm going to clear everything out so you really see it. I'm going to push second and then go to the caret up. See, it's the x square root. See what it does? It says answer. Well, you can't, even if you arrow back, it doesn't help you. See, what you need to do is come over and it says that we need a cube root. So push 3. Then push second caret up. See, it's very strange. I don't know why they have it set up that way, but that's the way it works. Now let's put our fraction in. And we need 1 and go down to 27. I'm going to arrow over so you can see that we have exactly what's written on our paper. Push enter. And that's 1/3. And we've already seen by pushing our toggle button that is 3 repeating. So, yeah, that is larger than 0.1 and smaller than 0.6. So that is correct. So we verified that question. All right, let's go to number 8, which would be our last question. Order the following numbers from greatest to least. Okay, so that means we have the negative numbers, which would be at the end. They should be last. Always like to get the negatives out of the way. So let's see here. Well, this is, of course, -7, but this is -10 because the square root of 100 is 10. So this would be -10, which is actually, we're going from greatest to least. So that should be last. And 7's in front of it. So I like C, but we need to see who's greatest. Well, from looking at the negative and thinking about who's larger, A should not be an option and D should not be an option because it says greatest to least. So the negatives cannot be first. They have to be at the end. So we have B and C. They could work. However, B doesn't look good because it's saying that -7 is smaller than -10. And I disagree with that. And also, if you look at our fractions and then this decimal right here, 2.001, I disagree. I think that one of these fractions is going to be larger than that, okay? I think I really like C. I'm going to circle C. I like it right now. I'm thinking we need to put that in the calculator. So let's clear this out, okay? And let's see. Fraction 15, arrow down 5, enter. That's 3, okay? So 2.00 obviously is not larger than 3. So I've already verified that. But let's go ahead and look at the next fraction. So that would be 11 over 4, enter, and toggle. Oh, okay, that definitely makes sense. 2.75 is definitely larger than 2.01. 2.001. So C is verified. And we could also look at this percentage really quick if you're curious. Let's look at what the value of it is, okay? Since it's so easy to put into this type of calculator. So 0.8 second, use the parentheses, enter it into the calculator. Oh, look there. Automatically we see that it is pretty small, but larger than anything negative. So we have verified option C. All right, this is the last number in this particular video. Thank you so much for watching and liking us and sharing us. And again, you guys that subscribe and support us are amazing. Happy testing, everyone.